And while Durham's set to appear on the Hill tomorrow, the chair of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, says he plans to bring in more witnesses for the alleged Biden bribery scheme. The author of the book, March to Majority, Newt Gingrich, joins us this morning. Newt, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Big picture question to start with.
Good to be with you.
Are we getting closer to real accountability here for the Biden family?
Oh, I think we're learning more every month, and everything seems to fall into place. They are a crooked family. They took great lengths to hide the money. They've set up all sorts of different phony corporations as pass-throughs. Look, no serious person believes that Hunter Biden got $3.5 million from the widow of the mayor of Moscow because he's a nice guy, or he got money from Kazakhstan because he's a genius, or he got put on the board of Burisma because he's an expert on natural gas, or he got sent a diamond by a Chinese oligarch because he's just such a terrific dinner partner. The fact is, the Bidens went around the planet from the vice presidency on, basically peddling influence. And everybody knew they were getting a piece of Joe Biden. I mean, you have to really suspend total disbelief to think that this doesn't involve the President of the United States in a way which we've never seen. Being corrupted, selling influence to foreign dictatorships, it's astounding. I mean, everything that was false about the Russia hoax turns out to be true about the Biden conspiracy.
So many people say that China has something on our president. And that's the reason why we're sort of going easy on China and we're kind of being bullied by China. You think China's got something on our president?
Well, I mean, let's start with the fact that a surprising amount of Chinese money went to the University of Pennsylvania while the University of Pennsylvania was paying not just Biden, but they're paying 9 members of the White House staff and the Secretary of State. A great deal of Chinese communist money went to the University of Delaware, which houses 1,850 boxes of Biden's material. Part of the secret documents that Biden had misplaced, you can't make this up in a novel, were in Chinatown, in an office paid for by the University of Pennsylvania, which I believe basically used Chinese communist money for it. Now, the University of Pennsylvania won't release the internal details. The University of Delaware won't release the internal details. So at some point, the Congress is going to have to subpoena them and force them out in the open. But I think at a minimum, the Chinese communists in so many different ways, I mean, none of these billionaires were helping Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or Joe's brother without the approval of the Chinese dictatorship. It's just not possible. The mayor of Moscow's widow didn't send $3.5 million without Putin approving it. It's literally not possible. So what you have is some of the most dangerous opponents we have were deeply financially committed to the Biden family and to the team around the Biden family. I think it's amazing that the press has not looked at the fact that 9 people in the White House, plus the Secretary of State, were being paid by the Penn Biden Center while the University of Pennsylvania was collecting millions and millions of dollars from the Chinese communists.
It's just exasperating. Where is the story in the New York Times about these 9 families? Where is it, please? I'll have to change the subject, Newt. With your permission, I will. The contest that's getting the most interest in the forthcoming election, to me, it's between DeSantis and the as-yet undeclared Gavin Newsom. That seems to me to be emerging as the second tier of this election. It's getting a lot of interest. What do you say, Newt?
Well, look, I think if you're Donald Trump and his team at Mar-a-Lago, you're thrilled. You know, DeSantis doesn't have a problem beating the governor of California. DeSantis has a problem beating the former president. And if DeSantis can't get his mind off of whatever it is that Gavin Newsom does next and get back to focusing on Trump, this nomination will be over. There's only one real game, and that's to get to be the nominee. And to the degree that DeSantis has gotten off on swapping barbs with the governor of California, Governor Newsom, he's actually in the wrong race. The race for DeSantis is to be the Republican nominee. And if he's absent because he's busy having fun fighting with Gavin Newsom, that just makes Donald Trump's weak.
One last one. Do you think that Trump versus Biden You think that will actually be the matchup in November of next year? I don't. I suspect that maybe neither of them will be front of the campaign.
Okay. Well, I hate to disappoint you. I've grudgingly come to the conclusion, and I'm going to write a newsletter at Gingrich 360 about this. I think Biden is much more formidable than we think he is, because we don't measure things the same way the Democrats do. And I think Trump right now is very formidable. I mean, if you're 30 points ahead of your next rival, that's a lot of ground. And Trump has run nationwide twice. He has an organization nationwide. And he's frankly the best campaigner in the Republican Party by a huge margin. He likes it. He enjoys it. He's extraordinarily competitive. And, you know, barring something major happening, I think he'll be the nominee.
Okay, I have to leave it there, but I could talk politics all day with you. Newt Gingrich, thank you very much for being with us, sir. We always appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.